My name is Ryan Kelly. I'm a quality assurance engineer with a CQIA certification, and I'm going to go through how QA can protect 8% of your profit margin. So I'm going to give you a bit of background. So let's just say, for example, you own a company, pencils, and guess what? You sell pencils. You sell and manufacture pencils, so you go through, let's say you sell 1,000,000 pencils a year. Each pencil you sell for 25 cents. It costs you 15 cents to make, so you have a 10-cent profit margin. And this just jumps out to be an easy number also of $100,000 per year in profits for pencils. So you might be asking, what's the problem? That sounds great, $100,000 a year. But the problem is manufacturing isn't perfect. So you might go through and have a couple of issues. I'll give some examples on potential issues that might happen. Let's say you have crooked lead. So the lead isn't straight down the center of the wooden pencil, might be off to the side instead, maybe even exposing itself on the outside of the pencil. But even if it's not centered, what the issue causes is, let's say you're sharpening a pencil and you go through, and every pencil sharpener has a normal size, and because the lead's off to the side, maybe only half of your pencil kit actually has lead exposing, the other side is just wood. So when you're trying to write, it's not going to do anything. So you could have that. You could have chip paint. So if you've seen a lot of wooden pencils that have yellow paint on the outside, maybe yours is a decorative pencil, and you do a licensed photo or print on the outside, and that gets chipped. Maybe your pencil just has the wrong length. Maybe your team cut it wrong, and it goes through and it's potentially not caught. So I'm going to just throw out a number to 5% defect rate. So let's just say for pencils, and those 1,000,000 pencils that are manufactured and sold per year, let's say 5% of them, which is a fairly conservative number, has a defect rate. So that's 50,000 pencils a year. So I'm also going to break that down into two different buckets. So let's say we have two different buckets. Let's say we have an internal failure and external failure. So I'll kind of break that down. 60% generally are internal failures. What that means is it's caught before shipping. So 60% of your 50,000 defective pencils are generally caught before shipping. And this would be caught in inspections that you have, other QA measures that are already in place for your product. Versus, let's say, compare that to external failures. So that'd be the other 20%. Those external failures means that they're caught outside of already selling. So they're already in the customer's hands when the issue is caught. So I'm going to break that down. I'm going to start on the internal failure side, and let's say those 30,000 pencils. So I'm going to break that down into two potential issues since it's the larger bucket. We're going to say that there's a paint rework, and you're going to have the crooked lead. So we're going to say the paint issue and the crooked lead. So let's start with the paint issue. Let's say that was an internal failure. You caught that before shipping, and that's not really a huge issue because you could go back through those pencils that have the bad print on the outside. They're not scrap. You could go through, re-put them on the line, just have them repainted. They only need to go through a section of the line, so it's not even going to cost you the whole 15 cents to make it again, but you will potentially have 5 cents in labor per pencil to go back through and redo that section of the line. So 15,000 pencils to rework at 5 cents per pencil comes out to be $750. Not terrible. That's actually the pretty good outcome for a defect. Let's look at another item. Let's look at if we had the crooked lead. So crooked lead, you can't go back through and just re-put that through the line. The holes are already made. Graphite's already sewn through it. So you're going to have to scrap those items and you're going to have to remake them. But you caught them before shipping. So the only price you have to pay is that rework. So that's just 15,000 pencils at 15 cents per because you have to make them all over again. So that comes out to be $2,250. So for all of your internal failures, that's 30,000 pencils that you had to redo the entire year. So you had 2 issues the entire year. It's pretty good. You go through and you have basically about $3,000 that you paid for internal failures on those 30,000 pencils that you caught. That's 60% of your defect rate. That's not terrible. But where the real cost is what goes out into the external failures. So the other 20K pencils that are defects, these are caught not before shipping. These are caught afterwards when they're already in the customer's hands. So we're going to use the example of the wrong length pencils. So this, who knows the extent of the length? Maybe it's just cut a little short and the customer feels cheated. Maybe you're actually selling golf pencils instead. No matter the issue, either way, you're not bringing back the pencils. You can't even rework these in the first place. So you're going to have to go through, and the costing on this is a little more complex, so I'll break this down. But you're going to have to reproduce 20,000 pencils at 15 cents per, no question about it. You're going to have to reproduce them. So you're going to have to start back up the assembly line, go through, produce another 20,000. The issue comes in here too in those additional costs when you also have to pay for shipping. So this could mean a couple things. So let's say I don't know everybody's exact scenario, but let's say for pencils, they might be selling to a retailer. If they're selling to a retailer, they're going to have to, if they had certain timelines they had to hit and their pencils came in, but they need those pencils to stock the shelves, pencils might need to come through and air freight that shipment, which means it's going to cost more than initially. So we're going to say an extra 20 cents in shipping to get that expedited there. Let's say you're not in stores. Let's say the company Pencils is actually online. Let's say they're selling on something like Amazon or some kind of marketplace. Now you're going to have to go through, and instead of, you're going to have to ship to each individual person who bought those, which will probably end up being more expensive than the latter, but we're going to still assume 20 cents per pencil to ship them out. If this is air freight shipping to an individual person, whatever it may be, you're going to have to pay extra on that. And that's not all. You're also going to have customer service labor. So again, let's say you're in that store, let's say you're in that retailer, you're going to have to go through and you're going to be the one who has to go through and put the new pencils on the shelf. Take out the old ones that were defective so they're not sold and you don't get those poor reviews, and you put the new box of pencils up there. Maybe it's this could potentially be a lot of things. This could be your actual call centers coming through and taking those calls. Just the time to go through and hear a customer's complaint about their pencils, get their info down to go through and ship them new pencils. Maybe this could be a lot of things. This could be just taking data on your defect rate, how many items have been come through. So this could potentially be a lot more. I still think this is very conservative, keeping this in at 50 cents per pencil for customer service labor. And again, this could be a wide range depending on who your audience is, how you're selling these pencils, but I'm going to round this to be about 50 cents per pencil. So adding all those together, that comes out for just this one issue of the wrong length pencils. This is going to be $17,000 that's going to cost for you just to go through and redo those 20,000 pencils that had that external failure. And you can see the difference between external failure and internal failure. When you catch it before shipping, you can save a lot more money than if it's external and you have to not only rework all the pencils, but figure out how to ship them, that customer service labor, everything else that goes along with it. And depending on your scenario, there might be even more that you have to do, but I'm going to leave it at this. So altogether, between internal and external failures, that's $20,000 in defects. So that's for pencils, that's 20% of their profit margin has been taken away because of these QA issues, just because of a 5% defect rate, which again isn't terrible on the So this comes out to be a $20,000 total for your defectives for both internal and external failures. And that's just based on a 5% defect rate, which is pretty still conservative. All right, so you're probably thinking, Ryan, how do I protect that 20% profit margin that I have? Well, that's a good question. And the main thing you could do is bring down that 5% defect rate, because you're still going to have issues, things are still going to come up. But if you bring that 5% down to 2%, let's say you spend $4,000 on QA. Let's say you go out, you get control plans, you get extra inspectors, you get extra testing done, you're doing a whole lot, $4,000 in QA, and it brings you down from 5% to 2% defective rates. I'm going to go through the cost on each of those, how much you save between both still internal and external. So I'm still assuming this is the same year, you're having the same issues, but you spent the money ahead to go through and have those QA services so you have less defects. So 2% defective rate, million pencils, 20,000 defects. So we're going to break that up again, 60% internal, 40% external. So your internal 12K pencils, 6K each for both the crooked lead and the chip paint. So that's 15 cents to rework per pencil on the crooked lead and 5 cents to rework on the chip paint. Then you still have your external costs or your external failures, and that's 8,000 pencils that you have to rework, pay for that shipping, that third-party labor, everything like that as well. That comes out to be $8,000 in defects. So I'm just going to throw that out again, $8,000 in defects compared to the $20,000 that it cost just from dropping your defects from 5% to 2%. That's only a 3% drop, but it saves you much more than 3% of your profit margin. And let's say you went through and you spent that $4,000 on QA. That's $13,000 you spent that year on QA and the defects, which is still less than that $20K that you had beforehand. And looking at this altogether, you could see that saves you, you only spent $12K on your total, so you have $8,000 in profit, which means you have, for pencils, an 8% profit margin that is saved that you get to keep in your pockets because you went ahead and spent on the QA beforehand and you're able to reduce your defectives. I don't want to throw this as just a solution for just to save you money too. There are other benefits to having a better product. Not only do you have a more stable production as you catch these issues like crooked paint, maybe the paint issue happened because you were doing it a certain time of year and the humidity didn't stick onto the pencil as well as you thought it would. And from now on, you produce during a different time of year, or you have different measures during that time of year. You could go through, and because you're learning from these mistakes, you have a more stable production going forward. So even if you catch these issues that pop up, if you have QA in place, these issues are cheaper and you can still learn from them and prevent them from happening again. You also have fewer customer complaints, so less people going online and bashing either your product or your brand. Maybe a first-time customer who came in, bought your product, and those pencils were too short. Maybe they're not going to buy from you again, but either way, that kind of cost isn't calculated in all of this to end up having the fewer customer complaints and building the trust for your brand. You also have stronger retailer trust, so not just with your customer, but with the distributor. As you go through and you have your on-time shipments and you're missing less of these, and they can see that you have your QA process in control, they're going to have and develop more trust for you and the company altogether. Pencils. So it's not always about, QA doesn't have to always be about fighting fires. Like, it's not the mentality of, oh, hey, this item's wrong, we need to fix this right now. Sometimes it may feel like firefighting mentality where you have to go through and you're just trying to put out the burning that's happening, stop the bleeding, stuff like that. but you can actually use QA to protect your profit margins. This is all about catching problems before your customers do, and how you can just spend some money now to go through and prevent those large gaps in the future. So throw down in the comments below what issues you've seen. Maybe others can learn from them as well. If you have specific questions on product quality or want any specific advice, let me know. We could set up a call sometime and we could go through. I'll help out free of charge. Just I want to learn too, so throw anything down there. Feel free to reach out. And yeah, I appreciate everybody hopping in. Thank you.